Plan to add Soil Biotics organic products to your 2023 crop program. Organic 1R seed treatment is a standalone seed treatment that is compatible with most other organic seed treatments and may be applied up to 5 months prior to use. It is formulated to improve the early stages of plant life, reducing insect and disease pressure. Soil Boost is raw humate product that is broadcast applied pre-plant to help improve soil structure, maintain nutrient availability, and stimulate microbial activity. Soil Biotics PHK is a dry granular product using a proprietary carrier blended with humates. It enhances the uptake of nutrients, increases water holding capacity, and enhances soil biological structure. PHK may be broadcast, used in furrow, or banded. Soil Biotics organic products are formulated to work together to provide a continuous, beneficial growth environment. For product details, contact information, visit soilbiotics.com. This episode of Back to the Roots podcast is brought to you by Byron Seeds. The folks at Byron Seeds believe organic requires a different perspective, plan, and approach. Organic isn't simply a different type of product or even a different way of farming. It's a different way of thinking, planning, commitment. It's a different philosophy on how to feed the world. Many won't understand, but the people at Byron Seeds do. We're owned by organic dairy farmers. We not only have the product, but we plan, manage, and execute organic. We speak your language, we share your struggles, and we laud your successes. Organic isn't a way of doing business, it's a community. We learn from each other. We're in this together. We'd be glad to talk cropping plans, management systems, the road to profitability. We understand what you're trying to do. We're farmers just like you. Visit us at byronseeds.net or give us a call at 800-801-3596. And thanks to Byron Seeds. You're listening to Back to the Roots podcast, and I'm Brian Wood. And today with Mike Klein, we are in Monmouth, Oregon, sitting down with Jon and Ross Bansen, who are dairy farmers, grass-fed dairy farmers at Double J Jerseys. Jon, you started this 32 years ago, and could you just give us a little bit of history of how the farm got started and bring us up to current day?
Sure. Well, we my wife and I bought this farm when Ross was 2 years old. Our other daughter was about 10 days old, and started. We knew it was going to be a grazing dairy, and it's what my grandfather had been doing. It's what my father had been doing. It's what I'd grown up with. We saw really the power of grass and forage and how that would really sustain the financial end of the dairy as well as the ecological part of the dairy, and so we set about turning this farm that had been in corn for the past 25 years turn it into grass ground, and so we developed the farm over quite a few years here. Started as conventional dairy farmers and did that for 8 years before we made the transition to organic. And 23 years ago, we transitioned over to organic production. And then 5 or 6 years ago, Ross was already back to the farm for about 4 years, and we transitioned over to grass milk. So, we added 2 more children along the way. So we end up with 4 kids, and Ross is on the dairy now. Has been back for 10 years.
Yep, 10 years.
10 years, and our son Ross joined the crew 2 years ago. So,
Kai. I'm Ross.
Oh, sorry about that. It's a occupational hazard when you have a lot of kids.
I know all about
forget the names. Yeah. So we switched over to organic or to the grass milk, and and now we've kind of changed our system around again a little bit more, but it's always been grass forward focused. That's what we're really done. We've just gone to focus more on the grass, and by grass I mean all sorts of forages, because there's now 10 or 12 things in our forage mix. So yeah, that's kind of the short overview of what we've done. We started with this 110 acre property with 80 acres grazable, and since then for the last 26 years, I guess, we've rented a piece of ground across the river from the landlord Bill Snell, and we've been doing feed and heifers on that farm since then. And then 16 years ago, we bought another piece of farm ground about 8 miles up the road, up in the hills, up in the kind of coast range, and have used that to graze heifers. And then we bought another piece right next to it to kind of expand our abilities to grow forage now that we're all grass milk and we need more forage for the cows.
And that's where you currently reside.
Yeah.
I just moved down to the dairy about 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of been transition on moving around the houses, and just had a son this last year. So
yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Next generation's coming up. So
yeah, we are. My wife and I, Julie, who we started the farm, but we are trying to tap out a little bit here. So Ross has been tapped in, and
my wife, I have to give credit to Brenna, and then also my sister-in-law Sarah. She's helping out too with the rearing calves, and my brother's helping out quite a bit. So yeah, it's been a nice kind of transition, slowly transition, but it's been nice.
So John, was the transition from conventional to organic a bigger hurdle than transitioning to all grass?
Yeah, it would be. It would be, just because doing that transition from conventional to organic, you had to give up all those tools you'd been told you had to have, or you're going to fall off the edge of the earth, right? Mm-hmm. The antibiotics and the hormones, and we didn't use any herbicides when we were conventional. Our fields, we wouldn't spray in the fields. It was something my father said. He wouldn't drink milk off of from cows where they'd been and where spray had been. So we never used that. So that wasn't a big deal, and we really hadn't ever used conventional fertilizers either, because we had the cow manure that we used for fertilizing our ground. So that was a bigger transition than going to grass milk. Grass milk was just, what would you say, Ross? It was more about trying to balance more of what we were growing with our cows,
matching land and animals, and making sure that we had just the right balance of that, I guess.
Yeah, we had to, we've concentrated a little bit more on adding things into the pasture mixes since we went to grass milk, just to give the cows a real balanced nutrient diet, because each species of forage out there has a different nutrient makeup, and so to make sure the cows were getting a real full diet that they needed of all the nutrients, all the micronutrients.
Broad variety of different species.
Yeah. Because, each species has a different relationship with the microbes in the soil, and the microbes in the soil are really what are driving our entire system. And so to do that, you need different species of forages out there to interact with those different microbes in the soil, which really ramps the whole system up.
Mm-hmm. And I'll let you name them all off, but the species we do have out there it ranges, but you can list them.
Well, we have we really like perennial ryegrass, but that's a grass that grows really good in the cooler parts of the season. and not as really good in the hot part of the season. But then we have some orchard grass to go with it, and that gives you that deeper root, and so later growing in the season. Some festal we put in there, same kind of reason. There's some meadow bromes, Alaskan meadow brome that we put in the mix, and that works pretty well. Red clover, white clover, we'll throw in some alfalfa every now and again. Chicory and plantain have been really important for us, and chicory and plantain are the kind of things help with worms. With parasites, that they have an anti-parasitic value to them, and they also reduce some of the nitrogen loss in the soil as well. So there's all sorts of great reasons to feed some of those other things, and it's just a matter of getting used to how to grow them and how to manage them in the pasture, because every plant wants to do what every plant wants to do, and you just have to manage accordingly.
And going off the anti-parasitic, I think I don't know if we want to talk about now, but that's why we've incorporated some of these tree rows now that we're planting. So cottonwood, willows, and a bunch of other different varieties of trees. So yeah, I mean, we kind of looked around and saw some people that were utilizing just wind breaks and shade breaks, and thought that was a pretty good idea. So yeah, for the variety of trees, I mean, it varies from field to field. So some here at the dairy, we have some cider trees, we have some deciduous, we have some conifers, and every row differs.
Yeah, quite a few big leaf maple. And the big leaf maple, primarily because they're really good. They'll be a good shade tree, and one of the things we're really looking to do is promote shade, because now that we're grass milk, the cow's job is out in the field 100% now, and with a warming climate we've got going, we really need to provide some relief to the cows on that front. So we're spitballing right now and throwing a whole bunch of different species at it.
For trees.
Yeah. And I think we're putting some rapid growing ones in, like some poplar trees in.
I'm not a huge fan of poplars.
Ross is not a huge fan of poplars, but the thought process is we put the poplars in because they'll give us fast shade. Then they can also give you really good feed, because you can start, our thought process is once the other trees, the slower growing trees that we really want start coming on, we can start cutting the poplars out. But you can also cut them back, and so they keep sprouting lots of more branches every year, and then you just cut those off and throw them to the cows for feed too. So we'll be able to provide a lot of summertime feed for the cows just off of those. It's called coppicing if you do it right along the ground. We'll do it a little further up. There's a
Mark Shepard would be a good guy to reference coppicing, because have you guys ever interviewed Mark Shepard?
No.
Okay. Should maybe call him up one of these days.
It should be that should be a guy.
I'm the permaculture, or what's the?
He does permaculture.
Yeah, and I think he used to ship with Organic Valleys. So.
He was in Organic Valley.
Yeah. So
he's in the Viroqua area, isn't he?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. But
I've never heard of that. What do you call it?
Coppice.
Yeah. So if you coppice a tree, you cut it off. And only certain trees will do that. Willows do it really well. So that's cutting them off at the ground level, and they just keep regrowing every year, bring more and more sprouts up at you, or leaders. Yeah. And they have so many leaves on them. When you cut them off, throw them to the cows get a ton of feed off of it. So you can do that with willows, with and the poplars as well. But the poplars you cut up a little higher on the tree, and they're basically doing the same thing, just a little higher up on the tree. So it still gives you a little bit of shade too. But
And you have those rows, you have those fenced off right now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Currently fenced off.
And then once they're big enough that the cows won't destroy them, you'll get rid of the fences.
Established enough. Well,
we may not.
yeah,
we'll see.
We haven't determined that yet.
We'll see. That's something
We're just kind of going with the flow here to see how things, grow up and establish themselves, and because you also don't want the tree to go backwards if the cow rubs up against it too much or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't had those interactions with those tree lines just yet. But that's why also, talking about feeding, I mean, that's why the cider trees are in there. It's extra, some energy, and it's got some hazelnuts and some, I guess filberts, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
People know. But, and then what's the other tree planted?
The
Chestnut.
Chestnuts.
Yeah, chestnut.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so there'll be some feed value coming off of those as well, and that's there's a book I was just reading, a guide on planting trees on silvopasture that Mark Unruh, I guess is his name, from back east in Pennsylvania has written this thing, and it's a really good guide to getting started with trees in your pastures. Primarily back east, one of the species they use are honey locusts because they produce so much feed on those pods that the cows can eat. But out here, we're not so sure that honey locusts will actually grow very well in the
Hopefully
wet,
it's
wet-
not the honey locust with the barbs.
Not with the spines, no.
Okay.
So there's all sorts of different varieties, and some, so to get the ones that are barbless, you really need to go with a one that's been grafted from a barbless stock, because the
Those
other ones,
barbs are absolutely awful. I mean, I've seen them 4 inches long.
oh, they'll probably take your tires off. Yeah. But you don't get those.
Yeah.
So there's different varieties. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
talked about willow being anti-parasitic. How's that work? Is it in the ground, or would it be the feed that it's making?
The leaves.
It's a feed. And it's also, that's how they made aspirin with the compounds out of willows. So willows can provide a lot of things for cows. And what we've really seen is, and Ross will attest to this too, that if a cow's not feeling quite right, she'll go out and eat different stuff out in the field.
Yeah, I guess, so I worked overseas before I came back to the dairy on a farm in New Zealand, and, the guy was kind of interesting, but I think he had some good things too. So on the side of his lanes, he had a kind of a sloped hill, because the farm was built up on this hill, but he planted a bunch of different varieties of herbs for the cows, edible herbs, for the cows to nibble on if they want to, and some cows would stop and eat, some cows wouldn't, and so I think the cow kind of knows in what they are wanting, or what ailment they might have.
Little medicine patch.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. So, but I thought that was really neat, that he kind of thought outside a little bit, and was like, oh yeah, I'll just plant some herbs on this hill that it wasn't grazable, so it was so steep. So might as well utilize it for something. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the first fence rows we started with, we planted in trees, but we planted in some red twig dogwood, and red twig dogwood, cows really like to chew on it so we figured once it climbs up over the fence, they'll keep it off the fence by chewing the stuff down. So cows get a little something. There's some area for wildlife and a little shade for the cows, and it all works pretty well.
Yeah, you see once wintertime rolls around, all the little bird nests in the dogwood, and because we have also maple and then also some Douglas fir. That's a pretty common tree out here, and you see all kinds of wildlife just moving in and interacting with the cows.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So many fence rows are just getting bulldozed out every year, and to get bigger chunks and bigger fields, I love seeing the fence row come back, because excuse me, the amount of wildlife and nature that is in a fence row with some trees and some cover, and even like frogs, well, they want to go over to that woods, they won't they will follow a tree line or something. There has to be a fence row or something for them to make that journey.
Yeah, and it's not just major wildlife, insect life, which is, what you really see on the farm when you do this grazing type of thing, and you start adding trees in. You see how many other species survive on where we are, and insect life. Native bees need that kind of cover where there's some trees, where they have some open ground to have their little solitary nests in the ground. So you see all sorts of different stuff going in there, and that just invites more life into it. And we're businessmen, and we run a farm, but we also want to enjoy ourselves when we're outside. And you enjoy yourself when you get to go out there and there's bird song and there's little critters. You get to see what they are, and you get to watch it all. And so it really ramps up. I think the trees and the fence rows really ramp up the enjoyment factor of being out there. And who doesn't like to go on a hot day, sit under a little shade, huh? That's, yeah. So it's a lot about that too. And I think consumers, if they were driving by a big old flat field that's been scraped of any kind of trees or anything anywhere, or they go by something that's got some nice trees and looks like a place they'd want to hang out and have a picnic, which one are they going to want to support? And so, I think we owe it to our own marketplace to make our place more enjoyable as well.
Mm-hmm. It's when you see cows out and you see them spread out and laying in the shade, I just love seeing that. Spread out, they're nice and cool. They're not bunched up in the sun trying to cool off, which I've never understood what the cows are thinking. It's 100 degrees. Let's all stand on a pile.
Yeah. Well, I think when they don't have adequate shade, I think that's just a defense mechanism. Mm-hmm. Group up. They're just, anytime a cow is stressed, they do what they do. They're a herd animal, right? They group up as a herd. If it's raining really hard, they group up as a herd. Yeah. You'd think it would make more sense spread out. You're not going to be as miserable, but that's not the case. I think
that's a good point. The stress aspect, because even if a predator was around, they would group up. So I think stress is a factor in why they do that. Hence why we try to focus on other aspects of, making them less stressed out and more enjoyable for life out there. So,
and that's why you want to really have these tree lines that are run the entire length. So ours, our trees are planted on a north-south line because the sun goes east-west. So that means the cows will have more effective shade all day long that way because, the sun's going over. So part of the day, most of the sun will be in the morning. Most of the shade will be on the one side of the tree line, and the afternoon will be on the other side of the tree line. But you get this, the cows will spread out better that way. You have a lot less congregating, and that means not only your manure is spread out better in the fields because the cows, when the cow lays down, first thing after she stands up is she goes to the bathroom. That's usually the thing. So if they're spread out when they're laying down, the manure will be spread out once they're on the way. And that's what we really need to do, is have our nutrients spread out effectively through our fields to really make all the grasses grow to how we need it. So.
Do you have water in all individual paddocks for troughs or?
Every paddock has water. We don't want the cows walking any further than about 600 feet to water. Like I've always said, if they have to walk more than 600 feet to water, it's an event. And in cow life, when it's an event, everybody goes. Mm-hmm. The whole herd gets up and goes.
So is 600 feet, is that the number? Because I've heard that over a certain length or distance, if one goes, everybody goes. Yeah. But if it's shorter, they go as needed individually.
Yeah, and you find that out. I suppose you might be able to stretch out to 800 feet, but, we find about the 600-foot thing is about about right. And that's the problem. If it's an event, everybody goes there. And what do cows do? Lots of times if they go as an event, they all drink water, then they all lay down right near the water trough. And what do? They stand up. Now all of your nutrients are by the water trough. All your grass is on the further away from the water trough because they overgraze by the water trough. They undergraze by the other stuff. So you're in effect just trying to get a pattern that the cows want to
compaction.
do. Well, and compaction, yeah, which means less grass, right? So because the roots can't grow in compacted soil. So all sorts of bad things happen when you get them grouped up too much. So, yeah.
Do you graze your milk cows as one group?
Yes.
Or do you one group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Versus like a split herd or something. Yeah. Yep. They're all just together. I mean, the herd's not super big. I mean, I guess we milk about 160 cows. So, it's we set the paddocks up where, they can uptake what they need.
And it'll be about 1.25 acres per feeding is what they get.
Which is 12 hours?
12 hours, 12-hour feedings.
And about a 34-day rotation since they're back on the same spot again. So. Yeah,
roughly about 34 days. And so we do the milk cows as one group, the dry cows as one group, the heifers up at our other farm, there's one group. We can more effectively graze as one group because that means we need to move the cows more often, which is more beneficial for the cows and for the forage. Because, you move the cows on, you move the cows off. They're on their 12 hours, then they're to the next piece. That means that other piece now has 34 days to regrow. But if they can come back and keep regrazing that for days, well, then you just set your whole system back.
Yeah, and then also we started this year to do nurse cow-calf pairs. So we're also, I would give credit for my dad. He's moving them.
Yeah, I'm going to give credit to Ross. It was his idea that I move them. So, yeah. Somehow this was all Ross's idea.
No, it wasn't my idea. I actually heard it on a one of those webinars. I think maybe you were leading it. There's a guy in the Midwest, Amish farmer that did cow-calf pairs. Do you remember sitting on that?
Yeah, I remember sitting on that.
It was like
pasture. I think you're giving Mike too much credit for leading it.
Maybe it was a different Klein. Maybe Klein
I think, was it Joe Klein?
Oh, it might have been.
Yeah, I don't. Was it on like the Pasture Club call?
Yeah,
had to been a smarter Klein.
Yeah, probably spelled differently. I'm trying to think.
I wonder if it was Pete Lehman.
It might have been Pete Lehman
because Pete is doing. Nurse
yeah,
calls.
I just saw it and they were live streaming it and I mean I've been looking into it for a while and I thought it was just a great benefit to a farm.
From what standpoint were you looking at?
Just the health of the calf. Calf. I love the aspect of the calf being outside, being able to run, have fresh air, grass, and then also there's a lot of, I guess, just natural instincts that the calf can learn from the cow grazing and those interactions. I mean, that intimacy there. Kind of the dairy industry has lost a little bit of that intimacy when we separate cows and calves so fast. But and I think we've seen, I think my dad would attest to it, that we've seen huge health benefits from it. Just the calves are nice and robust. The cows, I think he would also say that the cows also, we take some of the higher somatic cell cows and pair them up with these calves, and we usually pair cows and calves in a group of 3 to 2, just depending on the cow.
So this year was our first year to really work with this, and so lessons were learned. Some pretty good lessons were learned.
We're always learning. I just want to state, we're always learning here. So nothing is absolute. So in my mind, 10 years, if I listen to this, I'm like, what was I saying?
Yeah.
Well, that's how it should be.
So then we'll be back in 10 years to get the new idea.
Yeah, it'll be a double J jerseys. Things look different every freaking year. It just changes. We see what works. We throw out the stuff that doesn't. I wish I had my so back in the day when I first started here, after we'd been probably on the farm and grazing for about 5 or 6 years, I was asked to go speak at different farmer gatherings about grazing. And I wish I had recordings of that, because it was so full of crap. I mean, it was so full of crap. You know, what I thought was absolute brilliance, I'd laugh myself out of the joint right now. So, but that's how it goes. You know, the New Zealanders will tell you it takes like 20 years to become a good grazer. You know, and I was pretty full of myself after about 10 of it, you know, and I thought I knew what was going on. And about year 20, we made some of the biggest breakthroughs we've ever made on our grazing here at our farm, because it just takes that long to kind of figure out what really works, how to work it, you know, how to work it on your farm, because every farm's kind of different as far as the topography, layout, species you can grow, you know, your climate is huge. You know, even in our wet climate, you can go to a farm here and then you can go to OV farm that's half hour away, and it's a different scenario just because their farm layout's different.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you can go on and on with that farm layout, because you know, access to energy and you know, management. All kinds of stuff.
Yeah. No, it's huge. No, it's a huge difference. So, but you know, I think I'm getting smarter.
Well, I think that's our goal, to get smarter every year. There are times when I really think I've got reverse instead of fourth gear.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of people that might take me to task that I'm getting smarter, but there might be some. But you know, Ross has been pretty instrumental on driving our calf program here, because he was the one that came back, and we raised calves in hutches forever. And Ross was pretty adamant about us putting them in groups and raising them on multi-calf feed, you know, the multi-nipple calf feeders. And that's what we started doing that, and it was total success. It was absolute out of this world success. But you know, like a lot of things, you got to take an idea, and then you got to see how it works in your system, and you got to act accordingly. And you know, so much of it is about the management of that system. I mean, anybody can say, yeah, you should put cows on calves. I'm here to tell you, it could go wrong in a lot of different ways if you're not watching it. But it's a phenomenal system of raising calves. You know, we learned some lessons this year. You know, really you need a minimum of 4 months on the cow, a minimum. The calves that were on for 6 months, they were almost ready to go in the milk herd by the time they got done with 6 months. They were just monster calves, beautiful animals. You know, but it's a minimum of 4 months. If you try and short them, it's not so good. It doesn't work as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned quite a bit of lessons from that, because even the calves we paired up later, probably too late, we tried to wean them off, and don't wean off calves.
Well, we didn't. We tried to take them off the cow, because the cows had to come back because we got into winter, and had to put them in a pen, multi-group pen, and try and keep feeding them milk. Well, they don't want to suck off a milk bar then, so then you got to feed them out of a bucket, and it's not quite the same, and it just didn't work as well. Plus, calves raised earlier in the summer were a whole lot better too, and I think that has something to do with, as you get closer to fall, your grasses slow down, your energy levels in your grasses slow down, so the calves that are with the cows start grazing right away. So they're going to see a lower energy level in that feed, which is going to affect their growth rate. The cows are going to see less energy in that feed, and so they're probably going to be producing less milk for those calves. So you just don't see as good a calves as if you start them earlier in the summer. But the ones that were started April, May, June were just amazing unstoppable animals.
I mean, we saw the comparison with calves we raised on groups throughout the previous winter, and the calves that we had raised on the cows, and we combined them because they're in the barn together now, and yeah, there's a huge difference.
Really?
Yeah. So calves raised in group pens that are fed, as much milk really as they can drink versus cows on calves, and yeah, I mean, it's apples to oranges.
There were those some of those calves that we had on cows for a full 6 months. Came back into the barn. Once we weaned them off those cows and brought them in the barn, their herd mates that were 2 months older than them were smaller, not nearly the kind of calves.
So you're not doing the nurse cows during the winter. You're just doing that.
No.
Are you considering trying nurse cows like year round?
If we had the facilities for that, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you have to think about how the management of that and who's going to be in charge of that and what that looks like. So there's a lot of thinking. It would be nice, but like you said, you kind of have to adapt and you kind of have to learn a lot of different aspects.
We would need to find a facility, and then Ross would have to determine that I needed to take care of calves in the wintertime too. And I'm not so sure I want to do that. That's but
I'm just trying to help him out with this exercise regimen. That's all I'm trying to do.
So we found I found that the cow calf herd was really fun to deal with. It was early on, we took the first 2 calves and 4 calves and 2 cows up there. We had 2 cows on each 2 calves on each cow, and we took that little group of 6 animals up there, and immediately 2 calves disappeared. And we're up in the wilderness a little more, and there's a lot of cougar and things, and so I thought, well, the calf is because the little calves don't respect the wires. They'll go under the wires because they're shorter. And we only have 1 wire around the field, and so the calves go wherever they want to. And we looked for those calves for 5 days, couldn't find the calves. 2 calves had just gone missing. They're gone. And I told Julie, my wife, I said, I think we lost 2 calves. And then night 6, we're sitting up at the house, and our house sits up on the hill, and we can see clear down into the field. And I took out my binoculars because one of the calves had a white stripe on it that wasn't disappearing. And sure enough, I see this white striped calf running out of the tall grass. It had been hiding, it had just come out at night to drink. They were just coming out tonight to drink. They were hiding because it's a natural instinct on calves to go hide. And sure enough, all of them, every calf, about every 4th calf we'd take up there would go hiding somewhere. And I finally said, well, I'm not going to spend any time looking for them because they'll come out. They know where their food is. And if a cougar got them, well, I guess a cougar got them, but no cougar ever got any calves.
Okay.
So, but that was just a thing I had to learn. The other part was until the calves got to about 2.5 months or 3 months old, they were short enough to go under the single wires. And the whole farm has a perimeter fence, but everything on the inside is single wire. And even up against the creek is a single wire. So every night, all the calves in the group, and sometimes there'd be 8, sometimes there'd be 10, depending on what part of the season it was, that were small enough to go under the wire. And they just go out under the wire and they'd go running over the whole farm. You'd see them going at a fast clip, their tails up, just running like they were possessed. And they'd run for about 20 minutes, half hour, and then they'd come right back into the herd and hang out. And we even had some hang out because we have our big heifers up there, and they would be several fields apart. And I did that on purpose to try and keep some separation so they wouldn't try and mix. And it got to where those little calves, lots of times they'd go over the big herd, hang out with the big heifers, hang out the whole day. And then at night they go slipping back to mom to get some milk. So, it was kind of cool to watch it too. So,
well, I know Pete Lehman, who we were talking about, that does that in Indiana. He said they're doing, and the stories are very similar. They're not in as wildernessy of an area, but they lost calves for days at a time. And he said the biggest battle that they had with doing the nurse cow system was between their ears, because you're so used to being able to control the environment that those calves are in, where they're at, what they're doing. And when they went to the nurse cow system, those their calves were just everywhere.
Most of the things we deal with here are between the ears. Most all problems, it's like for years, I couldn't figure out how to slow the rotation down here. Well, all you did is slow the rotation down, dummy. It's give them a smaller piece each time, and you might need to give them a little bit of feed at the very first part when you're slowing them down on the milk cow rotation. But then the grasses all start doing what they need to do. They grow, you're going in on taller forages where there's more forage per acre. There's more total dry matter per acre. So you can slow it down. And that's how you slow it down. You just slow it down. I was always thinking, well, I got too many cows. I can't give them that small of a piece of ground. Well, yeah, you can. You just then the grasses catch up, and then you're all good.
Yeah, they catch up fast. Then you're like, okay, well, I got too much.
Then I got a lot of feed out here.
So did you have to kind of figure out what your stocking density, what number is ideal to meet that 34-day rotation?
I mean,
we've just always kind of...
the farm hasn't never gotten bigger or smaller, right?
We've never, the only time we've added cows is when we added acres. So we added a bridge across the river so we could graze an extra 30 acres or 35 acres, I guess it is. And so we could add some cows then. But, we've always tried to stay within, our means here as far as our grass and our cow balance. So, we're not going to get bigger. We're not going to be bigger.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's no desire to try to get big too. It's a pleasant lifestyle at this point. Matching the land base with your cows and having enough forages to feed, not having to buy, gobs of feed in, because that gets really expensive really fast, especially this last year. So, you kind of have to. This is work and life, and so you have to balance that too. So
once it starts to balance itself, it's when it becomes really enjoyable.
Yeah.
When that symbiotic relationship with work and personal time and everything comes together.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you're, I'm a busybody a little bit. My dad probably would attest to it. So I kind of like trying things out. I'm a contrarian. But so the chickens I added 2 years ago to the chicken tractors, and they follow the cows in grazing season. Wintertime, they're just out there. But, I tend to dip my hands in a few things and test things out, because, I enjoy watching those chickens, too. It's not a huge time commitment. I don't know if my wife would say that, because she's the one packing and cleaning the eggs and delivering. Yeah, so, I just kind of like testing the waters sometimes and the boundaries, but you learn, because things will check you. You can't extend yourself too much, because that just you still have to enjoy your life. And now I have a son that you gotta be more present, for him. So
what is the next thing you're gonna dip your toe in, or is that all kind of on pause with the...
Oh, the next thing I'll dip my toe in. There's so many things on the horizon.
Well, he's started. I think one of the things Ross has started to do is add in more direct marketing to our farm. Because now he's doing beef as well.
Grass-fed, organic certified, and the chickens are organic certified as well. So I'm very fortunate. I'm a part of this farm because I was able to certify the chickens, because I'm a very small flock still. It's only 150 birds. We tried to see if we could get certification, but they're like, well, you're too small. So but since Double J is certified, I can just go off the be a DBA of that. But it's I'm just trying to, direct market a little bit more. And I think what I have in store, I have a lot of ideas floating around, but, I think like a farm store would be a really neat, and I don't know how practical it would be, because you're trying to reach, quite a few consumers, but I just think it would be nice for consumers to come out as well to see where their stuff is growing. Because this farm, it's so what do you want to say, picturesque in certain times. I enjoy being here, looking at the scenery. I think consumers would enjoy that as well.
We have a lot of people stop on the side of the road, take pictures, eat their picnic lunch. We've had people drive up our driveway and sit under the trees in our orchard and have their picnic lunch. My wife was like, whoa. Julie said, well, what are those people doing down there? I said, I'll go ask. Sure enough, they'd driven halfway down our driveway. We're having a picnic lunch under our trees. That's a good problem to have. That people find your place that enjoyable. They want to spend some time there, and so I think that's something Ross is tapping into with the direct marketing thing. Now, direct marketing is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work,
and you got to deal with a lot of people.
Yep.
And so it can be rewarding. I think it can be part of the balance as we see markets change, because markets change all the time, and I take a look, just the history of our family. My grandfather dairied down in Northern California, in the Redwoods in Ferndale, California. And it's a remote place. They just had that big earthquake down there. It made the national news on that one. But it's really remote, and so it's hard to get product out of there in his day. And so in his day, they did jerseys on pasture, and they made butter and churned the butter, and most all of the milk, the skim, went to hogs to feed pigs, and the butter got on a boat and went to San Francisco, which is about a 7-hour drive south of there. So we saw that happen. Then my father got into the business, and cheese was made there, and jerseys were still all the rage. And we moved to Oregon, and there was an all jersey co-op, which paid a little bit better, and that worked really well. And butterfat was king, and then all of a sudden butterfat was dead to the world, and nobody wanted it. And then we became unsexy in a big hurry. and then then it was the race to the big confinement Holstein herds, and now, then the organic movement came in. So, the market's just changed so rapidly, and who knows where we go from here. But, I think Ross having some other irons in the fire probably isn't a bad idea.
Different avenues. And, that's kind of my mindset is adaptation. You just kind of have to adapt to market, or, whatever things are thrown at you, especially for ecological side. Your mind needs to keep kind of regenerating new thoughts and saying, how do you tackle this, and what goes along with that. So I think I probably think of kind of too much things at some point. Probably need to take a chill pill sometimes. But
turn off the podcast for a while.
I love listening to podcasts. I love you guys' podcast too. So.
Thank you.
He's a voracious listener to podcasts. I would rather just stumble around out there and look down. I'm always being told by my wife that I should look up more often, but everything's enjoyable is to look down. Look what's going on down at the ground level.
But I only listen to podcasts when I'm in equipment. So trucks, if I have to drive somewhere, or like a skid steer or a tractor. So that's kind of how I pass the time, is just trying to stimulate my brain while I'm sitting still and bouncing around. Because the tractor part to me is not super enjoyable. It has to be done, but it's
that's why there's multiple people in the operation.
Absolutely.
To keep the ideas flowing, but in check at times, right?
Well, and I think that's part of that. I'm an old dog, and I've seen stuff a little bit more. Ross pushes me to try new stuff, but then I have to put it in check because I have to have the perspective. Okay, okay, Dad, you're gonna move calves and cows around your whole farm this summertime. Now I'm the one that has to manage that idea, and it was a great idea, but that's the pull and the push of having different people on the farm. But it really adds to the farm. It doesn't detract to it, because without Ross coming and saying, pushing ideas, we don't get stuff done. Without me being the meter a little bit, and which leads to a little tension in our relationship, because he wants to go further forward, and I'm like, whoa, back. Let's take a look and see how this works better. But without both, this thing doesn't work nearly as well.
Are you breeding beef for the stuff that you're direct marketing? Are you just using Jersey steers, or?
Yeah, we're it varies. We do have a few beef cows currently, a Wagyu and
a Angus cross. We primarily breed the beef, so we're forced not to raise as many Jersey heifer calves because we don't need that many, and the market has gone away on replacement heifers. Currently, if we raised a replacement heifer to sell to somebody else, we'd lose about $600 every head trying to sell them as replacement heifers.
And I think some of that had to do with the sex semen that came on board.
A huge amount had to do with sex semen.
We'll see how that all changes with the new organic, whatever that is.
I'm not so sure it will change, seeing how there's the sex semen. So, but primarily we're using those because they got a lot more value. A beef cross calf sells a whole lot better than a Jersey bull calf. Yeah.
Which we see that in our area.
Yeah.
You get a bill from the auction barn if you send a Jersey bull calf.
So what are most desirable breeds for your area as far as beef breeds go?
Well, what I've really noticed, Wagyu is just really hot right now.
Well, Wagyu is Wagyu. They look almost like a Jersey. They don't grow very fast.
No.
They don't grow very fast. They grow quite slowly. You're going to want to slaughter them at about 26, 27, 28 months. You got to hold them a lot longer to do that. But I had a Jersey Wagyu because we were growing calves, or we're raising calves or breeding cows to Wagyu for a couple customers, and we've been doing it for a few years now. And these customers, he came to pick up one of the calves, and he says, "Hey, I brought you a rib steak." Well, it wasn't even a ribeye; it was just a rib steak. He said, "I'm sorry, I didn't have a rib steak left. I brought you a rib steak. It was the best piece of meat." I don't particularly love beef, especially steak. I fell in love with that piece of meat. It was just brilliant. Man, was it the best thing I'd ever put in my mouth. It was just really that good. So we have one Wagyu. It's slated for our family's freezer, but we probably need to start doing a little more raising.
But for right now, just starting off utilizing some of the cull cows. That's what I'm doing as far as direct marketing, and I think we did one bull too. So, it's a lot of great feedback from customers, and just growing really slow. Because I think when you get too fast of growing and trying to conquer the world with the market or anything, you just tend to lose a little bit of sight on your, scope and business.
I think that was Ross's first insight into direct marketing, because he started with a few more chickens, and you got to build the market. The market doesn't want to come to you.
The market has to be there. People have to be there too for that market, and you learn. I mean, you kind of have to learn.
It takes quite a while for people to kind of get used to a trail.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's not speed. Once you got them, though, I think you got them.
Oh, absolutely. You're trying to manage eggs and beef now, so which is good because there's demand for it.
Yeah, and it really helps to have his brother Kai on the farm now too, because that gives a little more time for him to do some of those things. Gives me the ability to disappear up the hill on the other farm, and
also there's another benefit. my brother is, I'm a little bit type A, he's a little bit type B, he's a little bit more approachable in certain degrees, and so he's very nice to have around the farm because he's a little bit more
he levels out
lax.
he levels out the excitement amongst us all, so he can come into
and I mean lax in a good way, not lazy.
He's chill. He can come into a situation where there's maybe some tension and just tell us all to chill out. And we do.
I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat it. In all family operations, you're going to have, pull and push. I mean, that's just a natural kind of thing that happens. And so it is nice to have kind of a person that's a little bit more out there and like, okay, you guys just need to step back, take a breath, and let's go. So, and it's good.
And I'm trying to chill out by going up to the hill and not being shown up down here. So, the less I show up on the farm down here, the more I stay on my farm up there. It works better that way.
The less jobs you're given?
It turns out,
or you're just handed all the.
It turns out I'm getting more jobs, but some of the jobs I have weaned myself off of by becoming incompetent at them, because Ross has a certain level of competency he wants to see on some things. So I got banned off of manure spreading. I don't know how that happened a long time ago.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah, it hurt my feelings.
I bet.
How could that have happened? So. Yeah.
All right. So, in making your silage, do you help with that, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, it's it kind of comes down to, Kai does most of the mowing. I do some of the mowing. Ross, every now and again, will be talked into getting on the mower, but not very often.
I mowed lots before Kai was back.
Yeah, okay. But Kai takes the majority of the mowing. Ross has got the raking. Generally, he does the raking. I'm the baler, and then as soon as I'm done baling the day, I'll start to haul.
Yeah,
Ross hauls. He hauls.
Kai's wrapping.
Kai is a wrapper stacker extraordinaire. The kid has been doing it for since he was 10, 11 years old, probably.
Very young.
He's been loading bales on the silage crew in the skidster since he was 8. I think he started his wrapping maybe at 14.
Yeah, 15, I think. Just
maybe
before
14,
his
15.
driver's license.
Okay, yeah. So he can do things. He's a master with the skidster. So
and it helps to have someone that's very competent in wrapping, because quality of feed is really important when you get little holes or nicks or anything in the process of wrapping those bales. I mean, you got a bad bale.
We stack them 3 high, and Kai will get to the second layer, and then he goes to put the third layer up, and he rocks the skidster back to get a little higher reach. I mean, back on 2 wheels, and poof, on it goes, and so he's a master at that.
Mm-hmm. How many bales do you make a year?
About 2,000-ish.
Yeah, that's including milk cow, dry cow, heifer.
Okay. And is that a 4x4 or a 4x5 bale?
It's we always did the 4x4. I've added a couple inches onto it, so I always did the 48-inch round. I can.
It's like 52 now.
I've gone to 52 because
that 4 inches is a pile of hay.
Yeah. It's a ton of hay.
Unbelievable.
I'd like to know exactly how much, but it's a ton more. Mm-hmm. It's just a lot more. Plus, you make better bales that way. Plus, you got to take less loads back out of the field because we wrap at the stack. So, I'm baling. Ross is loading. My wife, Julie, oftentimes gets roped into some hauling because she used to be a school bus driver when we first got married. She drove school bus for about 2 years, so she knows her way around big equipment. And so we bought a new used silage truck with an automatic dump on it here a few years back.
Automatic transmission.
It's automatic transmission.
So it's easy for if anyone does. My wife has gotten roped into hauling here and there too, so it's easy enough for people to haul with. Yeah. But yeah.
So when we need Julie, she'll throw in too. But so we have a system really set up really nicely.
So, and your goal is first cutting is to mow it all, or do you go in you mow 40 acres.
Oh, yeah, we mow what we know we can get in the weather window. So our job is to see the little windows and jump on them.
Yeah, they're long days. Sometimes we probably push ourselves a little bit too hard. But
yeah, Ross has never had to work all through a whole night, and we refuse to. I've never been the kind of guy. I know some farms will bale and wrap all night long, but that's just. We need sleep.
You have to have sleep.
Yeah,
it's so important. I attest to that now, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to balance that out too. So we do go pretty far and hard when we do first cut, but there might be some late nights. I mean, we've been up since 10, midnight sometimes.
So the brilliant part about being the baler is usually you're the first one done, right?
Because the raker is done early enough to do something else yet.
Correct, amundo. Yes. Well, the raker becomes the hauler, and I will. Lots of times I'll throw in on the hauling too. But am I going to do the last hauling of the night? Probably not. And so we have an efficient system.
We've fine tuned it since we have the people in place and kind of had to learn how that fits in, and it's great.
And when we hit our windows, so we'll generally mow 20 to 40 acres a day, and so we see the weather window coming up. The earliest we can put the feed up, the better. April. Mid-April, we put up feed in mid-April. That's just golden coming back out to feed cows.
What moisture are you trying to bale at?
50 to 60% moisture.
That first cutting is probably kind of hard to get down to that, or is it?
With a double rake, if we have our right window, we can usually get it pretty close.
We also acquired a tedder this last year, so we can dry it out a little bit faster.
And so, we just bought a tedder because we saw that as one of the things that slowed down our process in the spring. Plus,
because those windows are so narrow in the spring,
and the tedder helps with our dry hay too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That you really have to have one to make dry hay, and it just, we used the tedder for the first 2 fields, I guess, in the springtime this year.
In the second cutting, the tedder was.
Oh no, we tedded the first.
Because we borrowed the tedder.
We borrowed the tedder. Yes. So we did but then we didn't need to towards the end of it because it was
just so hot and dry.
It was hot and dry.
So do you windrow it a little bit and let the ground dry out and then ted it back out, or
no? We mow as wide as we can, and then you go in, you ted it. So I'll mow it, or Kyle mow it in the morning time. After the dew's off, maybe start 11 mowing, and then you can ted it. And it kind of depends. It really depends on the time of the year and what you're doing. Sometimes you could just the earlier cuttings, you're going to probably need to let it dry the whole day and then ted it after the dew's off the next morning, and then bale it, then rake it and bale it. But then there's a point where you can mow it, ted it, bale it that same day. We tried hay in a day because we've heard that's what you got to do, the hay in the day. So then we tested it, and the test came back with a little bit more energy in the hay in the day. Don't know if it was worth all the extra, going over the field one extra time with that tedder instead of just mowing it later in the day, mowing it like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, because you have your sugar levels up.
Sugars are the highest,
And then as soon as the dew's off the next morning, rake it and then put it in the bale. You're only two paths, the mower, the rake, and then the baler. But if you ted it, you add another pass through there.
And another piece of equipment, more things.
More labor.
We like the simplicity factor around here. If we can, but I do enjoy raking, so I just want to state that.
Ross does enjoy that, and I don't mind a baler, because the baler tractor has a air conditioning and a radio in it. The mower tractor does not.
No, it does not.
Yeah, so Kai
That's
got,
why the podcast.
That's right. Well, I think when you're on the mower, you probably can't even listen to podcasts
It's
because
hard.
it's so loud.
It's
Yeah.
so loud. It's
Yeah.
really hard too. Yeah, I just put earplugs in. Try to enjoy the scenery.
So we have some guys that'll windrow it as tight as they can when they mow and let the ground underneath dry out like for 3-4 hours, especially if there's a little bit of breeze. That ground will dry out like crazy where that thick hay was.
Yeah.
So they'll windrow it, and then say 3 hours later they'll take the tedder and then spread it out because the ground's dry. So they'll get really good dry down because they're actually the soil is dry where it's sitting on top.
Yeah.
So, but again, that's
And
that
do
extra
they
pass.
rake it back again after it's
Yeah.
dried out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we attempt. So, we were talking earlier about taking forage samples in the barn, and it really doesn't matter because what we put up is what's for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna sell our feed and go buy some that test better because we didn't do a good job putting feed up.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is put good feed up. So generally, the crop shouldn't be that heavy that if we spread it way out wide, there still should be some moisture coming out of that ground. If the crop's that heavy that it's going to hold a bunch of moisture under that windrow, we probably have failed to get it cut early enough.
It might be also, Midwest is a little bit different climate too, so you probably
absolutely.
get a little bit more rain, and so that did.
You got humidity.
Combat.
We don't have humidity in the summertime.
Right.
We do.
We got none.
Oh yeah, humidity is not
15% humidity.
not so fun.
Yeah, we're sweltering on a 40% humidity day. It's like, what's happening? Where are we? So the tropics?
So you don't like that 85 with 90% humidity?
No, we don't get that. If we have 95% humidity, it's raining here.
What is the general climate here? I mean, we're here in what would be your rainy season, or wet season.
Yes, we are.
And then you start baling around or can graze around April. Does it dry up?
We have a Mediterranean climate. So what that really means is most of our rain comes November, December, January, February, and into March. Most of it. But then the edges, the fall and the spring edges are also moist-ish. Mm-hmm. But then we go through 3 to 4 months where we get almost not one drop of rain here at all in the summertime. So, once we get to mid-June, forget about the moisture. July, sometimes if we get 1/10 of an inch of rain, we'll be amazed. That's in July.
And that's why you need to irrigate
in August,
for those couple months. Or do you irrigate all summer long?
Oh, no. We irrigate as little as we possibly can. And that's one of the things about longer grazing, longer rotation, taller grasses.
Keeps that moisture.
Better soil, having more organic matter in your soil keeps moisture in there, so we have to irrigate less. Mm-hmm. So, that's part about the sustainability thing too, not having to run those pumps and not having to burn electricity. And so, that's extended our grazing season and allowed us to turn that irrigation off. Most years, about mid-September, we can turn it off.
Yeah.
If we do a good job of irrigating up until then, we get a little shower, little rain activity.
Yeah. And our irrigation system is a little bit different. Dairy and PD, the other farm that we graze, it's a pod system, a K-line. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it uses a little bit less water, can trickle down into the soil a little bit slower. So it
does a 10 times better job at irrigating. Yeah. So the K-line is kind of like standing outside in a drizzle all day long. You just get sopped, and it soaks in nice. Versus like a big gun irrigator, it's like a thunderstorm
all
hit
at once and then runs off.
Then nothing. And the wind affects it a lot more.
There's a lot more evaporation. All kinds of stuff with that.
But the K-line's more labor behind it.
No,
not necessarily.
So.
No, it's
That's
it's a four-wheeler. You go out there and you pull the four-wheeler. We can irrigate probably this farm. The the 80 acres on this farm, I bet wouldn't take more than an hour.
Yeah, about 45 minutes to an
Something like
hour.
that.
It just
Yeah.
depends, because sometimes you have to reset lines or.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fairly efficient. If we would have hand lines or wheel lines, you would probably be looking a little bit longer time to do that.
And getting on a tractor to go pull a big gun through your field, which is really heavy and compacting your soil, and then you pull the thing out, and then it compacts your soil more as that rain, as that heavy water
energy
hits.
source, so you have to fill it with fuel to run the whole thing.
Yeah, you have
Loud
yeah,
motor going the
yeah,
whole day.
Yeah, no, there's nothing joyful in that. You know,
The
we like.
four-wheeler's fast.
Yeah.
You get around easy and light.
Yeah,
So-
we like things simple here and quiet. You know, there's no joy in noise. You know, if we want noise, it needs to be from birds, not from tractors. So the less we can have that. You know, we have lots of people who work in the dairy industry. You know, the guys who are builders and suppliers, and they'll come here. You know, we milk the cows. Cows are done milking. We're done with all of our stuff. They come in the yard at 10 o'clock and say, where is everybody? What's going on here? You know, our job is to get our job done, then let it be quiet and peaceful here. And I think that's good for the people, and it's good for the cows too.
Mm-hmm.
Have you interviewed anyone that rotates longer than 34 days? I'm just curious, because I've listened to a few people in the Midwest that I think the guy was on a 45-day rotation, which I was pretty wowed by that. But he said there's great benefits to that. But 34 seems to work pretty good for us.
We had Joe Schleybaugh on, but I think he's grazing different now than he used to, because he's in the 40-day range.
Okay, is he?
Mm-hmm. He's spring seasonal.
Oh, yeah. See, the guy was seasonal as well.
Because it seems like the spring seasonal guys have to manage their grazing a little bit differently.
Right.
And I tell you what, that summer slump, that heat, tell you what, if your herd gets whacked with heat, your spring seasonal, they take that drop.
You're done
and
for the season.
They're not coming back.
No, that is an issue.
And it's like a farmer said that, boy, brought the cows in off the pasture, and they were the spring season, were all ready to go to Florida. Ready to just take off for the winter.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think in my area. I don't think we've had anybody on that did the long rest periods.
I wonder if who you heard was Cheyenne Christensen in northern Wisconsin. I
No,
know he
so-
does longer rotations.
Yeah, I know he does longer ones. No, it was a young guy. He wasn't organic.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, it was some grazing podcast.
Yeah, I think a lot of that depends on just, again, your climate, your system. We've got the get out of jail free card here with the irrigation. You know, it's a good and bad thing, because you have to irrigate, which anybody in the Midwest would hate it if they had to do that. You know, it would just be like, what?
I mean, it's not
what do we have
super
to do here?
enjoyable out west here either.
It's not, but it's you know, it's one of the things we have to do, and so we've gotten used to having to do it. We try and do as little of it as we have to, but it also allows us to be able to grow really good forages through that alleged summer slump by putting different forages out there that can handle a little more heat.
Longer tap roots,
plus we have irrigation water. We don't have a summer slump.
Mm-hmm.
We go charging right through. We can keep our cows really level on their production through the summertime. You know, you're always going to lose some production when it gets really hot, but generally speaking, you know, we can keep their lactation level going really well. So we're not losing a lot of milk through that summertime part.
And what I see in my region is people are mitigating that summer slump not with irrigation but with a summer annual.
Yeah.
So they're coming in with a sorghum sedan or something for that end of July through August, and possibly just grazing that at night.
Yeah.
And that's really, really works well to keep that production up.
One of these things that really fascinates me about, and I need to buy another piece of ground to try it out.
Well, wait. I know you.
No.
I'm checking you here.
No. But planting lines of willows. There's these hybrid willows you can buy, and we could plant lines of willows. And then when you get to that summer slump, even if you didn't have irrigation, if you had kind of a piece of bottom ground you could do that on, you can feed heifers. You could feed your heifers for a whole month and a half during that slump just off of the willows. You go in, you'd coppice some every day. You'd be in there just mowing some, throwing and letting the heifers go at it, and you'd be out of the summer slump without having. So
I'll task you with the coppicing.
Okay, I would love to do it. So I just need a piece of ground to do it on now. So yeah, I've been looking already. Because you could also utilize ground that was not ultimately the best grazing ground, because willows like it in kind of moist areas. So where you could use those, and then you can move your heifer herd into that, and we might just you could maybe turn off your irrigation on your heifer stand and use your trees to get through that, and reduce your irrigation a little bit more. So
just willows, or like cottonwood and poplars?
This was primarily willows that work well with that, coppicing it to the ground level.
Okay.
You probably could come up with some other species.
Is that like a weeping willow, or what kind of willow is it?
No, just a regular willow. Yeah, there's a lot of different species of willows.
Yeah, it's actually shocking when you start looking at those tree books. You're like, whoa, yeah, I didn't know there's so many.
We have in Oregon probably 6 or 7 native species of willows, but there's also more of these other type of willows, and there's some hybrid willows they've bred just to produce a lot of forage, and they produce a lot more stems with a lot more leaves on them, and I think it'd just be a kick to do that. And I'm gonna be looking to find a piece.
Where did you find out about the willows? It was a
this
person
this was in that book I was just reading.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I've got 2 acres up at my other farm that are in a swamp, and they're going into willows.
Because willows do a good job of soaking up that excess moisture too, don't
Oh,
they?
yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found that out with the cottonwoods down here in these wetter areas on our pasture. It's tried it out quite a bit.
Really?
Oh yeah, and the cottonwoods love it.
Yeah. They grow feet.
Oh my word.
Feet a year. They're like 8-10 feet a year. Some of them. Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
To watch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You got to stake them, because we found out they couldn't handle that rapid growth at some point. Some of them went falling over, but
and some beaver got a few.
Yeah, a beaver got a few of them. Yeah.
Beavers.
Yeah.
Have you fed the forage from the trees yet?
No, we haven't. But
I'm curious how cows would.
Oh, well, we've inadvertently fed forage from trees for years, because some of the ground we have down here on the other side of the river that we graze on has pretty extensive riparian areas that we fence off the river. But the heifers, to get to the next field, have to go in through the trees. And they find tremendous amounts of forage in there.
Sometimes it's the first thing they'll go after.
A lot of times.
Those leaves, the oak, the ash, the maple.
The big leaf maple especially.
Yeah.
They just love big leaf maple. And when the big leaf maple trees start to lose their leaves in the fall, they'll go around eating them like they're chips. Just crunch, crunch, crunch,
So you ever
crunch.
seen those pictures where the tree just has like the flat bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's like a animal, a ruminant, just eating the
Yeah.
just totally flat. It looks pretty.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
picturesque.
Yeah.
In June, we had a big storm go through and blow down hundreds, thousands of trees. And in our pasture field, 4 trees blew down. Of course, one had to be a cherry, which at a certain point, as a wilt,
it's poisonous. Yeah.
But it's just a small window, so I just kept them out of that field. But there was a hickory that was over 4 feet in diameter that uprooted. And it was, the maples really got blown over because it was high winds and they were so full of leaves at the time. And every tree that blew down, I put the heifers into that pasture field. I mean, there's 16 inches of lush pasture. And what did they do? They ran to that hickory tree and ate every leaf they could reach. And they did that on every down tree.
Yeah. That's.
Do they? Is it something they need, or is it like just something new? I don't know.
No, I think there's a whole, just like the pasture plants out in the field. There's different nutrients that are coming in those leaves, and a tree goes a lot further down to reach other stuff.
It can uptake
a lot of different minerals and micronutrients those animals really want. So trees provide, browse provides really good feed for cows. It's just how do we fit it into our system where it works, where we can move them through that browse, and how do you do it? Then do you, let them self-eat? But, coppicing works really well because you cut the whole thing off the ground and they get to eat it all. They get to go at the whole thing and get to really work those down. So, a big tree falls down, you see the leaves up above where they can reach, they don't get eaten. But, when you coppice a tree, they get the whole thing at them because you'll.
And they love rubbing on trees. I mean,
it's
scratcher.
Yeah.
There's so many benefits to trees in a grazing system.
I would say it's the largest untapped resource we have on our farms now. That I think we've gotten so far away from that, and there's been so many darn bulldozers brought in to take trees out. It's a little bit melancholy for me, the whole tree thing, because I realize I'm 20 years, 30 years behind, and I should, because trees don't grow fast, right? I'm doing a whole bunch of just rewilding some property up at our other farm. And, I love growing the oak trees. I started 4 years ago. Some of them are maybe up to my thigh right now. And
unless you live really long, you probably won't see acorns on those.
I'm an optimistic person. I'm hoping to see a little shade if I lay really flat to the ground. That's right. I'm gonna call it a win. I'll be up there at 85, laying really flat to the ground, saying, "Yeah, see, I got shade." But that's more of something. I think that's just more of a legacy tree there that my kids will not probably see acorns, but my grandkids will. So yeah.
Well, these oaks are so slow,
but they're great. They're great. Yeah. They're great trees. I like them. So
would you have the red oak here?
No, we have a white oak.
It's a white oak.
It's a white oak, and it's the native oak here that a lot of this valley had oak savannas on it before they were all mowed down.
These, I was in forestry for 9 years, so I see these big savannas or patches of oaks here, and I wasn't sure what kind of oak, because we have the red and the white oak. Well, we have all kinds of oaks.
Yeah, but this Oregon white oak is what it's called.
Yeah, there's still quite a few really old trees.
Quercus garryana, if you want to know.
Oh,
there you go.
I think you looked that up.
No, I did not. No, I've been planting these trees for a lot of years now, and so what I found is when you go to get them at the native nursery, they know they want you to give them the proper name, because otherwise you're gonna get the wrong darn tree.
So I've got so many of similar varieties.
But the Oregon white oak is Quercus garryana, just for
Quercus garryana.
Yeah, just
interesting.
Yeah, there's a few people that are kind of have some literature on grazing and kind of a silvopasture. So what I mentioned, Mark Shepard. I've never met Mark Shepard or Richard Perkins. He's out of I think it's Sweden. But yeah, he does a multi-species kind of farm, but he has these rows, these tree rows, and then the keyline system, and it's very fascinating. I kind of got inspired by that. So everything we implement here, I don't want to take credit for it because I've seen it from someone else, or we're just implementing it and try to figure out how to
make it fit here.
Right, and adapt to it and see how it betters the system in the long run. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to success on a farm, is stealing other people's ideas and adapt it to what you need. Because we're generally not that smart, but we can steal other guys' ideas. Just
there's enough people farming, and we've been doing it long enough that all the ideas have been done at some point.
Well, what we're finding is lots of those ideas were lost somewhere along the way.
Yep.
And
Because
we're
coppicing is exactly
and we're only finding them back now as economics and climate makes us realize, we need our cows cooler here in the summertime. We absolutely do. That's why we're planting trees and lots of them. But again, I wish I would have done it 20 years, 30 years ago. But
that's why the saying is you live and learn.
Yeah, true that. True that. The old Chinese saying of best time to plant a tree 30 years ago. Next best time today. So,
Is that the actual saying?
Probably not. I'm probably paraphrasing here. What do you suppose?
Sounded good to me.
I don't speak Chinese, so I wouldn't be able to say it in their language
Mandarin,
anyway.
Wouldn't it be?
Yes. Well, there's a couple different.
Okay. Yeah.
Couple different.
Okay.
Well, hey, this is really enjoyable. I am really excited to down the road to find out how those tree lines worked out in your coppicing, how that goes with the new property that you're buying.
Yeah.
But I think it's so great how you're not just, we're doing it this way because this has worked the last 10 years. Like, you're always trying to innovate and change and adapt. I think it's great. So it's really, and I was so excited. I'm so glad I finally got to be out here on your farm in Oregon. So thanks for having us and thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for coming by. It's kind of nice to chat.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys and keep up the good work. You got good podcasts.
Appreciate it.